Hi, welcome to another episode of the Leaving California podcast. Here we explore the stories of individuals and families who are trying to make the decision of whether or not to leave California for greener pastures. I'm your host, Cherie Harrington, and I'm a real estate agent here in San Diego. Today we have a special guest with us, Michelle Broderick, who's a real estate agent from the San Antonio area in Texas. And Michelle's here to share with us insights about San Antonio, the good, the bad, the ugly when it comes to moving to Texas from California. And Michelle actually just helped some friends of mine who moved from the Temecula area, so Southern California, to Texas. And it was a super long process because they wanted to make sure they were in the right spot, which is super smart. And they ended up renting for a while, but Michelle hung in there and actually became really good friends with them, which is what I love most about real estate, and they're really happy there now. So thank you, Michelle. I appreciate that. And welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It was my pleasure to work with them. And you're right, it was a long process. They rented for a while but we did finally get them in a new home, and they are just as happy as they can be.
It's so random. So, we had this scheduled for a couple of weeks, and he actually reached out to me yesterday on Facebook, which was weird because I haven't talked to him in a while. And I'm like, hey, how's the new place? So they really love it there. So thank you for helping them. I really appreciate it.
It took a while because where his office, he has several offices, several businesses that he needs to get to. And so trying to find someplace that was kind of centrally located so that he wasn't going to end up, being on the highway forever.
Mm-hmm.
But it was nice for them to be able to rent for a little while and just make sure that, they kind of got their bearings and that they were good with wherever they ultimately decided that they wanted to buy a house. So it worked out well.
And that it's the right spot for them, for sure.
Absolutely.
Can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and how you ended up becoming a real estate agent?
Sure. I retired. Well, I didn't retire. I quit teaching. I quit teaching about 7 years ago, and had done that for 13 years. And then just my philosophy and the philosophy of the education system were varying. And so I just decided it wasn't worth the stress. And so I knew when I quit teaching, I knew that I was going to do one of two things. I either wanted to sell RVs, or I wanted to become a realtor. And my husband
Interesting.
said, honey, are you really going to want to be selling RVs in the heat of the Texas summer? Because that's when you're going to get the most business. And I thought, yeah, I don't want to do that.
Better air conditioning in houses.
Absolutely. So real estate has always, for as long as I can remember, we used to take our girls when we were younger, and we would go through what they called dirty houses, which were houses that were being constructed.
Okay.
And so I've always loved that, and took my real estate classes and my exam, and 7 years later, here I am. I was top producer for last year for my brokerage. So it's been a good ride. It's been a good ride, and I love it.
I think it's interesting to learn about people's background, because we do have a lot of people in our little referral network that were teachers or educators at some level. And I feel like real estate, you're kind of doing the same thing. You're educating people on where to move, how to move, that kind of thing. And it really fits in well. So I think that was a better decision than an RV salesman.
Oh, 100%, 100%. But you're right. And prior to education, I had been in advertising and marketing for a while. So I find real estate is a fabulous marriage of both of those.
Definitely.
Especially the market that we're in now. We can't just sit back and let the offers start rolling in. We really have to kind of do some marketing and some advertising for our properties. And then the education, of course, falls with both buyers and sellers, kind of holding their hand along the way and making sure that they understand every process before, during, and after the transaction.
Yep, definitely. So let's start with some positive aspects of the San Antonio area. I know you're a little bit on the outskirts, but maybe you can explain where you're at in comparison to San Antonio, and just what are the things that you love about that area?
Absolutely. So where I am is kind of south central Texas. There's San Antonio along the I-35 corridor. There's San Antonio south and Austin to the north. And they are predicting that within X number of years, I don't want to say how many, that's going to become a metroplex. It'll be the San Antonio Austin metroplex, kind of like in Texas, we have the DFW, the Dallas Fort Worth metroplex. It's just
Okay.
one massive, when you leave one area, you don't know that you've left it because you're just continually passing through other areas. So where I am located, where I live, where my brokerage is in New Braunfels, which is really almost right in the middle of both San Antonio and Austin.
Okay.
I lived in San Antonio for about 15 years before we moved to New Braunfels. So I do quite a bit of business in both San Antonio and New Braunfels because I have a good familiarity with both of them. So that's kind of where we're located. What's wonderful about our part of Texas is, and this is true for San Antonio, I always referred to San Antonio as a big town with a small town mentality. It's a huge city, but it has these little microcosms of amazing little neighborhoods where people know each other, and within that neighborhood you have everything you need. You have your doctors, you have your grocery stores, you have your childcare, you have everything that you need within those communities, but yet you still wander out and you take advantage of all of the beautiful things that San Antonio has to offer: parks, the Riverwalk downtown, and even as a person who lives here, we still enjoy doing those kind of touristy type things, going to the Riverwalk and enjoying those kinds of activities. Here in New Braunfels, it's the same thing. We're just not as big as San Antonio, but it's very much a small town community. We were founded in 1845, and it very still have a lot of German people here still speak German. We have lots of German restaurants. We were founded by Germans. We have two rivers. We have the largest water park. Well, I don't know if it's the largest, but it's one of the most popular, highly rated water parks called Schlitterbahn. Um, they call it the hottest, coolest time in Texas. And we have lots of hiking trails and parks, and a beautiful, quaint little downtown. Kind of, if you think of cute downtowns, not great, big, huge, high-rise buildings, kind of like what San Antonio or Austin would have. We are the exact opposite of that. Small town, although not really as small anymore because we are growing. We are New Braunfels has consecutively been one of the top 10 fastest growing cities in the country for several years running. So we are
And
growing.
we were talking before, and sorry to interrupt you. You said a lot of people that are moving from California are moving particularly to that area, which is kind of interesting. What do you think the draw is
They
there?
are. I think that it is because of our close proximity to both Austin and San Antonio, because we have an awful lot of people who commute to both. There's Austin is second only to the Silicon Valley in terms of technology. And so we have a lot of people who live here and commute north to Austin because Austin is very, very pricey to live in. For Texas standards, it might not be pricey for California standards, but for Texas standards, it's very, very pricey. San Antonio, not so much, but people will still live in New Braunfels so that they can kind of get that small town mentality. And we have I-35. That is a hot mess, always a hot mess, but it goes north to Austin and south to San Antonio, and obviously plenty of other ways to get around that if you don't want to be on 35. So I think that's one of the major draws to our area is
How long would it take, like, to get to San Antonio from where you are, and then to get to Austin?
well, obviously that would depend on when you're driving. My
Right.
husband works in San Antonio, and he drives. It takes him about 35-40 minutes on a good day to get into Austin,
Okay.
to get into San Antonio, and he works in the north side of San Antonio. To Austin, if you were driving into downtown Austin, you'd probably be looking at about 45 minutes. But again, that depends on the time of day.
Okay. Yeah. So you are smack dab in the middle. That's awesome.
Yep,
That's
very
very
close.
cool. What's the weather like there? So what is it like in the winter? What's it like in the summer?
Well, In the in the winter, it's not bad. The average is about average high 62, average low 37,
Okay.
36, somewhere around there. We do have some days where it drops below freezing, but not terribly often, with the exception of, I'm sure you've heard, 2021, when we had our great big huge
The ice storm or whatever.
week-long snowstorm, ice storm. That was certainly the exception to the rule. But in the summer, mm, very, very hot, very hot. I looked up in preparation for this. I looked up what the average temperature was in the summertime, and I want to say the average was 92 or 95. I can't I feel like that has not been averaged anytime soon, anytime recently, because we will have days of 100 plus temperatures.
Okay. And humid,
Days,
right?
weeks. Yeah, yes, it does get humid. We get some of the winds that come in off of the coast, because we're only about 2.5, maybe 3 hours at the most from the Gulf of Mexico. So
Okay.
we're pretty close proximity there, and we'll get those winds coming in off the coast that will create the humidity. And then we also, San Antonio, New Braunfels, our area, we get our water from the aquifer underneath the ground. And so I don't know if that has anything to do with the humidity, with
Mm.
the saturation in the ground, but yes, it is humid.
Okay. And then as far as like severe weather there, hurricanes are what you guys get hit with, right?
Well, yes, we can, if depending on how a hurricane would hit in the Gulf of Mexico, we could get the repercussions of that. It won't hit us head on, but we could get sort of the surrounding winds and rain that come with it, again, depending on where it hits at the Gulf and where it's moving once it hits land.
Okay.
We
Okay.
can. And tornadoes, we get tornado warnings. We don't have tornadoes here very often, but we do have tornado warnings and watches and warnings ever so often. But
Okay.
we don't
Nothing
have them that much.
crazy. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Tell me about your housing costs there. I'm sure that's a big draw for people compared to here.
Oh, I think it definitely is. So our average costs in New Braunfels, for example, are about 330,000. Um, Surrounding areas maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. We've got lots of little communities that all kind of have their own idiosyncrasies. Um, San Antonio is probably very similar. Average price rise 330,000, somewhere around there, and they can go upwards of a million and well beyond that. But still pretty affordable.
What do you
Certainly, I
get
think.
for like what do you get for like 350? Like what size house would you say?
Uh, well, it depends on where it's located, but
Yeah.
you could be upwards of 3,000 square feet, 3, 4 bedrooms. Just kind of depends on where it's located, but a nice size house. That's
Okay.
a good house for a good group of people to live in,
Yeah.
family. Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm in Carlsbad, so North San Diego County, and I mean you can't even get a fixer here for 1 million.
yeah.
Like dilapidated, like it's probably 1.2 now to get something that's really, really small. Even I just sold one that was 1,400 square feet for 1.375.
Wow,
So
that's
it's just, yeah,
crazy.
it is crazy. It's
I
completely
have
out
I
of
have a house
control.
that's listed, this a great example, that's just shy of 1 million, and it's on almost 2 acres. It is, I wanna say just north of 3,500 square feet, 4 bedrooms, 4 baths, beautiful, beautiful, a theater. It has its own little theater, and that's listed about 950. So, yeah,
Okay.
you can get
Different.
It's pretty good value compared to
Yeah, definitely.
for
Definitely.
sure.
What are the other costs that go along with housing though? So tell me if you know off the top of your head, like how do the property taxes work? So here, it's 1% of your purchase price, and then it really doesn't go up. Like they're reassessed every year, but they can only go up 2% a year cap. So it's not, like, people that bought their houses in 2019, for example. I have one in particular they bought for like 1.3, now it's worth 2.7. They're not reassessed on that up to the 2.7. They're still paying on the 1.3. So that is a
Okay.
nice thing here. People don't, they like to complain about everything that California does, but that is one nice thing that we have, is that Prop 13 protection. So
Hmm.
how do the taxes work there? Are they based on the sales price or?
Well, Texas is a non-disclosure state, so the appraisal districts will not know. Each city has its own appraisal district. They don't know what a house sold for. So what they do is they will appraise your house based on what they think its value is,
Okay.
and it will increase every year. This is the first year for my own personal house that I believe that they have now appraised my house at probably more than I can sell it for. So I'm
Okay.
going to fight my taxes, and that's a relatively easy process to do. It's kind of a lot of collecting of information and then presenting that information, but then they will lower my assessed value, which is my taxed value, and then ultimately lower my taxes. But yes, that does happen every year. You get your property appraisals about this time every year.
And is it a percentage, or how does it, like on an average house, what would you say the property taxes are?
I don't know off the top of my head,
Okay.
because I mine all just comes out with my escrow. It just is paid
Okay.
with, it's paid with my mortgage. So I don't know off the top of my head.
Gotcha.
But we
I
do have,
have heard that the property taxes in Texas are way higher than they are in California.
well, and we do have we don't have a state income tax, but yes, we do have like a sales tax. So, it all evens out.
Yeah.
So some of it's a little easier to hide than others. So,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know what I'm saying? Like it's
Yeah. Do you know what the sales tax is right now?
about 8%.
Okay. Ours, I think that's what ours is, and they're trying to raise it. But then our income tax is it goes according to your income, obviously, but the highest bracket is 12.3. So it's a big chunk going from
Yeah,
zero where you are to 12.3 here. So that's
right.
quite a
Yeah, for
quite a
sure.
savings. But like you said, like every place has its good and bad as far as fees go. And I think people need to consider what our property taxes are here compared to there. And then look at that you don't have any state income tax, and maybe our sales tax is higher in certain counties here as well. Cause I think like in Santa Monica or somewhere in LA, it's closer to 10%, or it might be over 10% now. So those things add up for sure.
Absolutely. And you think, oh gosh, I can sell my little bitty home for 1.5 million, and I can go to Texas and I can buy a great big home for what, and keep cash in my pocket. Yeah, you can. You absolutely can do that. But let's look at the whole picture. Let's look at everything that's going to be associated with that great, big, huge property. I have clients right now. In fact, that property that I was telling you about that's listed for about 950. They are from California, and this is their a big house, and it's a beautiful, beautiful home. But then they are now realizing, oof, it's more than we need.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of maintenance, almost 2 acres worth of work. So that's one of the things that I love doing, and that's kind of where that education piece comes in. Is let's just take a look at the big picture. Let's make sure that you know everything um, that's going to be involved with the new house that you're going to get into here.
Right. Definitely. And how about utility costs? Do you know, like, average?
It just depends on the size of the house.
Right.
And the insulation in your house, because probably unlike a lot of homes in California, there are not going to, I mean, I'm not sure that there's going to be any homes that don't have air conditioning, probably central air conditioning. We keep our home pretty cold. And I think our utility bills are, about $300-$400 a month.
Okay.
But for me, it's worth that price.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think
Yeah.
that's another thing people need to consider. We complain about the utility bills here, but there's a big portion of the summer that we don't even use our air conditioner because we don't
Right.
need to. So
Yes.
it's definitely something to think about.
Yeah. And we will use our air conditioner. In fact, the opposite is true here. There are very few months when we have to turn our heater on. Very
Okay.
few months. In fact, I don't even know that there would ever be a whole month at a time when here in my house I would have a heater on. I might turn it
Yeah.
on to warm the house up a little bit, and I don't keep it on.
And I think every house is different
It
too.
is.
Like not even just the size of the house, but just the way it was insulated, the way it's facing. Because
Yep.
I know like with our house, it's freezing all year round. Even when it's 80, 85 degrees outside, it's freezing in our house for
Yeah.
whatever reason. So
Right. Right.
everything's different. You just have to do your homework. Ask for people a copy of people's utility bills or however you guys do it there. That's what we do here.
Yep. That's
Um,
what we do here as well.
but yeah, definitely ask those questions. What's the closest airport to you?
Well, it depends. San Antonio is about 30 minutes south, and then the Austin airport is probably 40 minutes north.
Okay, so those would be
Yeah.
the closest, the
Mhm.
bigger,
Yeah, they
bigger.
are the closest. And actually, because I love planning for travel, if I really need to get a real cheap flight, I will even consider flying out of Houston, which is about 3 hours from here.
Okay,
And by Texas standards, that's nothing. 3 hours is
yeah,
nothing because sometimes going to San Antonio is an international airport, but sometimes more flights will be available in Houston. And so I usually, when I'm planning flights and doing something that's going to be a little more expensive, I look at all three airports, and it's pretty easy to
nice to have the choice of three. That's
absolutely.
awesome.
Hmm.
Very cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Trying to think what other types. Tell me what the gun laws are there. I know it's been a big thing here recently. And who was I talking to? God, I'm drawing a blank. I want to say it was Kristen Egley. She was telling me about the purple something law. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where if you have a purple marker on your property, it's basically like, don't come on my property because I could shoot you kind of
I
situation.
have heard that.
That's kind of
But
interesting.
I've heard it, but that's all.
Haven't seen it there.
Yeah, we are open carry, I believe, open carry. I don't follow the gun laws very much because I'm not a gun person.
Okay.
So I don't follow them very much, um, but you know, you will go around and, I went to lunch with my brother one time and we were just eating at a Mexican food restaurant, and I happened to see that he had his pistol. I'm like, we're in a Mexican food restaurant in the
Yeah.
middle of
You never
nowhere.
know. You don't know what could
Um,
happen.
but yeah, so it is, but
Interesting. So that's another question that always comes up on that Leaving California Facebook page is the food. It's like Mexican food. People are like, oh, I moved to wherever and they have the worst Mexican food. But Texas has good Mexican food from what I remember everywhere I've been there.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would eat Mexican food every meal every day.
I think
I'd be
most
real
of us
happy
would.
about it. Yeah, be real
Might
happy
be
about
ugly for us, but we could do it.
Hey, I would take one for the team if I have to.
That's right. That's right.
If you hear about that, I don't know, it happened many years ago. Some guy who said that he was going to eat McDonald's for a, a whole year or
I
something
think
like
I
that.
saw
He
that
wanted-
documentary.
yes, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I could do that with Mexican food.
Yeah, yeah. Probably healthier with Mexican food than McDonald's, I would think. That
At
was a
least have
scary
more options.
documentary.
Yeah. No, we have
Definitely.
fabulous Mexican restaurants. And here in New Braunfels, we have some amazing German restaurants as well. And because of our growth here, we're getting a lot more um, restaurants coming in. Well, we're getting some big chain restaurants, but we're also getting some locals who are opening their own restaurants and making some amazing food. And
Very
it's
cool.
just, yeah, very nice.
Can you tell me about that Riverwalk area? So is that like restaurants, bars kind of
It's all of
area?
the above.
I've
Yeah, it's
heard of it, but
Yeah, it's restaurants and bars, and there's some shopping along the way. There's a big shopping center at one end of it, and they are continually expanding it. It's a great place. It is. It's very, very nice. You can stroll along the Riverwalk, go down one side and up the other side, and you could spend a whole day there easily.
that's awesome. I think that's a thing too, where depending on where you live in California, right? There's some really rural areas of California, but like San Diego, there's so much to do here.
Mhm.
And those are the things, the weather and things to do are what I personally worry about if we were ever to leave the state, which we talk about on a daily basis, but
Right,
like,
right.
what would we do if we moved to wherever? And so it's good to know that there's things nearby, and you're by a bunch of really big cities too, which
Oh,
is
oh,
cool.
absolutely. Yeah. And in New Braunfels, there's plenty. Well, in New Braunfels, in San Antonio, in Austin, and in Texas. And I don't know if this is true in California because y'all are a huge state too. But for us to say we're going to go, let's go spend the day in Fredericksburg. Well, Fredericksburg can be 2 hours away. And then you spend 3 or 4 hours in Fredericksburg, and then you drive another 2 hours to get back. That's nothing for us.
Yeah.
3 hours, 4 hours is that's nothing for us. And
Yeah.
so even if you run out of things to do wherever you are, whether it's in San Antonio or New Braunfels or nearby, um, you've got the hill country, which is absolutely New Braunfels is on the very edge of the hill country. Absolutely stunning scenery, incredible, beautiful flowers. Um, Trees, ranches. It's beautiful. Rolling hills. That's why it's called the hill country. So,
Nice.
so yeah, there are things to occupy you for years and years and years here if you take advantage of everything
Awesome.
within driving distance.
So speaking of driving, how are the gas prices there?
Filled up yesterday at I believe 3.39 a gallon, which was on the higher end of where it's been recently. Yeah.
Sounds so
And I
funny.
know we just came back from San Francisco about a month
Oh,
ago.
that's right. Yeah. How was
Holy
that?
cow! Holy cow! We sat down and of course, we had a breakfast taco, and it was I don't know. The breakfast was like $18, and it was just a taco for my husband, a taco for me, and water for both of us.
Yep.
And I said, "Well, what did you think about that?" He said, "Well, it was a good taco, but it was not an $18 good taco."
Right. Right. Yeah, I haven't been to San Francisco in years. How was the crime and the homelessness? Did you guys?
We weren't in San Francisco proper. We actually stayed in the Mill Valley. We stayed in a little
Okay.
Airbnb right on the edge of Muir Woods, which was stunning,
It's
absolutely
beautiful.
stunning.
Yeah.
And spent we were visiting some friends in Sausalito, and then we also did a little bit of Napa Valley. And we're not big wine people. Love the scenery, but what we discovered was the cheese. Oh my goodness. We ended up not so much on a wine tour as we did a cheese tour.
Oh,
And
interesting.
it was fantastic. I don't know why people from California, why y'all aren't promoting your cheese tours instead of doing
I didn't even know about the cheese tours. That's interesting.
well, we kind of made our own, but you could definitely do that.
Right.
It was awesome.
That's awesome.
It was fun.
Anything that you can think of? So somebody moving from California to Texas in general, or your area that we might not know about that we really need to think about before we make the move.
Well, one thing that comes to mind, just because it's still recent in our memory, is our power grid, because Texas is on its own power grid. We don't rely on anybody else. We're our own little thing, and so I think for a lot of us, we're still not convinced that that's being repaired. And if we have another really hot summer, or as the case was when we found out that we had some major problems with our power grid, if we have another really, really cold, snowy winter, are we going to run into problems again? And so
Yeah.
that, to a certain extent, that's beyond, not even to a certain extent, I guess to a complete extent, it's beyond the average person's realm of being able to do anything about, but it is certainly something to think about. Is it something that we run into problems with every day? Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
But it's something that could potentially rear its ugly head again. And like I said, I'm not sure that for the most part, many of us aren't convinced that we're getting that fixed in a way that needs to be fixed.
I think that's a nationwide thing too. Like here also, just the whole utility issue is beyond, like you said, it's beyond our control, but
Right.
you have to just try to prepare as much as you can for the
Yeah,
way that you can, for sure.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So anything before we wrap up, do you have any like final tips or words of wisdom for anybody thinking about moving to the San Antonio area?
I mean, I would just say come and check it out, because there's so many. Truly, truly, if you want to move to the area, you need at the very least, a week, because every community is different. Every little town is different. Every little area around San Antonio, there's little cities in North San Antonio that are completely different than cities in South San Antonio, and little areas in South San Antonio. And they each have their own charming aspects to it, and they have their own things to do in each of them. But it's not something that you can just come for a weekend and decide, because it's a lot to look at. It's a lot to consider.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful part of our state. Absolutely beautiful part of our state.
And I think, you and I were talking before we started this, and, just the amount of people that I know that have left the state and come back because they absolutely hated where they moved.
Right.
Yeah. If you can, I mean, if you could spend a month somewhere in, like, let's say the heat of the summer there, or wherever you're going, whatever the extreme weather pattern is in that area, I would say do it 100%. And if you're not sure that you're going to make the move and you're going to love it, I wouldn't sell your house here, because it's really hard to get back into the market. Even if you leave for 6 months, the prices are still going up. At some point, I keep saying they have to level out, but they're not. So it's
Right.
just it's a crapshoot. If you decide to sell your house, you move somewhere and then you don't like it. And I feel like moving, a lot of people move for job relocation or family or whatever, but if you're moving because you're mad about the politics or mad about whatever, really, really do your homework. And like Michelle said, like, educate yourself, make sure you choose the correct realtor wherever you're going, and that what is that Dave Ramsey saying? They have the heart of a teacher, that they want to teach you about the area. They want to teach you about your new living conditions, so to speak, so that you're just not blindsided. You're mad, you move somewhere and you're like, oh crap, what did I
Right.
do?
And
And
I would wholeheartedly agree with that. If you can come spend a month here in, let's say, August, that's the worst of it. That's the worst of it.
yeah,
And if you can deal with at least the weather during August, then we can get you through the rest of the year. I can promise you that.
yeah, yeah, that's good advice for sure. Well, thank you so much. What's the best way for our audience to reach you if they're interested in moving to your area?
Calling or texting me is perfect. Email is also great. I am one of those realtors. I'm an empty nester, although I am a new grandma. But
Congratulations.
I don't I don't have office hours, so I'm kind of available. I had a client who texted me last night at about 10:58, and he said, "I've decided I want to put an offer on that house." So all of that is great with me. So reaching out by text or email or phone call is absolutely perfect.
Awesome. And I'll put all of your information in the show notes so people can reach out to you. And I just want to thank
Fantastic.
you again for helping my friends that moved there and for your time today and just for being such an incredible real estate referral partner to me and treating everyone so well. I really appreciate it.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too.